So that's certainly an encouraging sign.
All right, everyone, how are you all doing? Welcome along back to a brand new video. And today's a very interesting one because we got a very, very special guest this way. And this is Jordan Boersma. And he likes to find extinct animals in Papua New Guinea. All right, Jordan, how you doing?
Fine, how are you doing?
Yeah, all good, all good. So we're just going to skip over the fact we've been talking for about 2 hours before this anyway. But
Yep.
so I mean, we've spoken about the rediscovery of this alwo, the Black Naped Pheasant Pigeon, in great detail, and we've had a great story from yourself, and it was fascinating. So if anyone wants to go and watch that one, the link is in the description, and there'll be something up in the corner you can go and have a look at. It's brilliant, it's amazing, it's wicked, fascinating, lovely. But we're here now to talk about a different animal because it ties in with Papua New Guinea and your expertise in that area. And I wanted to talk to you today about it because there's some interesting stories behind it. Now, the thylacine. What is your knowledge on that?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know that much about the thylacine. I know that there has been some hope in some communities that my impression are more fringe communities, not mainstream scientific communities, that it could be holding on in Tasmania.
Yep.
That there are some potential reports in New Guinea, but those are all unconfirmed at this point. And they're from what I've seen, there have been no really convincing leads.
The thylacine went extinct or was declared extinct in 1986 after 50 years of not being seen since the one that died in the zoo. Since all of this has happened, there's been like sightings in Tasmania, maybe Australia mainland, and more recently there's been talk about Papua New Guinea. Now, the reason I wanted to talk to you is because of your like sort of expertise over there. You spend a lot of time over there. Have you heard about the Papua New Guinea thylacine thing in Papua New Guinea?
No, no, I've just seen some articles referencing that there's some hope that they could be in New Guinea, and that there might be some locals who have claimed to have seen it there. But in none of the areas I've worked has there been any mention of a thylacine. And we do talk, I've always been focused on birds when I'm there, but we do chat about mammals. And so on this recent trip to Ferguson, we were asking people which mammals they were seeing, because there's actually an endangered species there that's really poorly known that we wanted to learn about. So we were asking about every mammal that they see and hunt. And yeah, I've never gotten any indication in any place that I've worked that there's anything like the thylacine.
Because obviously you spent a lot of time out there, and your most recent trip returned this like amazing thing. One thing you've cited is it wouldn't really have been that possible without the local people. Now, when it comes to
Yeah.
the local people, how knowledgeable are they? And if you like, for example, were to show them a photo of the thylacine, and like, do you think maybe someone would point it out, or like, what's the sort of thing there? Like, could they be onto something?
I think the way to look for it would be to use a similar approach to what we used to find the pheasant pigeon, where you have illustrations or photos of a handful, well, ideally more. We had 25, but several mammal species, and just have the thylacine mixed in to where you're not giving away that this is what you're really interested in. And then you can get a sense of whether or not people are picking this out as something that they see in the areas that they go hunting in. If so, if they're also picking animals that you've mixed in that aren't in that area, then maybe you don't trust that they're thinking about the same animal that you're thinking about, that they're thinking about the thylacine like you are. Maybe they pick out the thylacine, but as you ask follow-up questions, they're like, well, it doesn't have stripes here, like this illustration, but maybe they first picked the card. So that's something we learned from doing this, is oftentimes people would pick certain birds that not only the awo, the pheasant pigeon, but other species that we were interested in that could be on Ferguson Island, but don't have any confirmed reports. And then you ask them follow-up questions, and they're like, well, it actually looks a little bit different in these areas.
Mm.
Or they say, well, this bird, it eats fruit, when we know that if it's there, that it would be an insectivorous species, or
Yeah.
something like that. So there's ways in which you can kind of more objectively gauge whether or not you can trust that they're thinking about the same animal that you're thinking about.
Mm.
And are familiar with the same animal that you're trying to find. I don't know that much about the thylacine and where it could still remain, if anywhere, on New Guinea, but I think developing areas based on, habitat, where it could be holding on, and then just trying to find the people who are the few people who go into those remote areas. I imagine that any of these places are bound to be quite remote. That could be harboring this highly sought after animal that has no records for so long. It's bound to be super remote areas, and so you just need to find the people who are the local people who are going hunting in those areas, probably. Because if they're going hunting there and they aren't familiar with the thylacine, then it's not there.
So like if the hunters don't know it, it's not there.
Yeah, as a scientist, I can never be 100% on anything,
Yeah.
but I'm like 98% there. Yeah, I think hunters anywhere in New Guinea would know. In these remote areas, I mean, unless you're in the major cities, I think the local knowledge is bound to be really good. This recent trip was the first time kind of rigorously assessing that. But I've spent a lot of time in a lot of different villages in New Guinea, that are at various stages of development. It's pretty consistent that people once you get out of the major cities, they know the animals really well.
Yeah.
Especially if you're connecting with the right people. If you're really seeking out the people who are kind of revered as the top hunters in these areas, people know who spends the most time in the bush. They'll tell you, and you go find those people and you talk with them. And if they don't know the thylacine, then it's almost certainly not there. It's not worth investing a bunch of resources to try to find it.
Do you think the thylacine is still alive?
My gut response to that is no, but I'm not well enough educated on it, frankly, to really lend much confidence to my gut reaction. But I'm geared to being a very skeptical person, and so yeah, I think the natural starting point is no. But if someone starts finding, say, yeah, local people in New Guinea who know the animal, and they've approached in a way where they're not kind of giving away that they're looking for the thylacine, then I would start to, yeah, have some hope that it could be there.
Is it possible for an animal of like the thylacine size, like a medium dog size, is it possible for something like that to go off the radar for so long in a place like New Guinea?
It wouldn't shock me.
Really?
It
So I know
Yeah, it would.
I know about the New Guinea singing dog, and that was like that had its own story and whatever. But like, because obviously you spent a lot of time out there. You're not someone who's never been there. Like you've seen the area, you know what it's like. And
Yeah.
I am surprised to hear you say it. Like which it shocks me a bit. Could an animal be like discovered for the first time of that size there?
Yeah, I think more likely no,
Yeah,
but I think there's a chance for sure. There are a lot of areas still on that island that are pretty far off the beaten path, and certainly for foreigners, but even for local people, there you can come to places there where local people aren't really spending any time. And so yeah, there could certainly be. It's hard for me to say, as I'm trained to as an ornithologist, and so I think more about birds. It's hard to say for a large mammal like that. Certainly small mammals,
yeah.
I would expect that there are species left to be described there.
I spoke to Forrest Galante, I think, about this time last year, and he sort of looks at Papua New Guinea, and he told this like very interesting story about he was in contact with someone from Irian Jaya, on the western side, talking about it, like a very remote space. He got a phone out to them, stuff. It's a very interesting story. But have you been to Irian Jaya yourself on the western side?
Yeah, briefly years ago, but I went to just one island kind of off the west coast out there. Yeah.
And like, is that as remote as it's led to believe, or
The place that I went to, no, but done a lot of work along the Fly River, which forms the border for a lot of the between Papua New Guinea and the Irian Jaya side. Yeah, that there are a lot of places around there that are pretty remote. And
yeah,
then, if you go up from that river basin, then at some point, you hit the tallest mountains there. That there's some mining up there, and there are some villages heading up the mountains. But I think there's probably still quite a lot of terrain there that's really hasn't seen a lot of activity from local people, and certainly not at all from Western scientists,
Mm.
or I guess the scientific community at large, where the animals haven't been surveyed. So yeah, I mean, I would be pretty shocked, right? As I think any of us should be, if suddenly someone finds a thylacine or any large mammal that is undescribed or has been gone for a long time there. However, it's like one of the places in the world where it seems it seems like there's a remote possibility.
The locals call the black naped pheasant pigeon the alwo.
Yeah.
I'm led to believe the thylacine has its own local name as the dobsenia. Um,
Hmm.
or so stories have been told in the past that a few people have gone out to sort of Irian Jaya and very remote regions of New Guinea, and they've shown pictures of like Australian animals to these people, and people have pointed towards the thylacine and called it the dobsenia. Have you ever heard that word out there before?
No, no, I haven't. But now I have some reading to do. Yeah, because that is where we started to get some hope about the black naped pheasant pigeon, is when we started to hear people consistently call it awo. And so if they
Mm.
have a local name for it, then it's clearly something real that's out there in the forest. And so once we started hearing that and hearing it consistently, everyone was who knew the bird was calling it the same name. That's where we started to get hope that it at least existed at some point and maybe still exists today. So that's certainly an encouraging sign.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So you would give that a tick. That's a good sort of sounding thing. Then if they've got
Yeah.
their own name for it,
Yeah, but it
obviously.
could be something else, right?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. So, it could be like as you were mentioning earlier that it could be something that sound like it looks like this, but it isn't this sort of thing.
yeah.
Would it be worthwhile to have a little search for the thylacine in New Guinea, or do you think probably not?
I mean, I think it's worth. Yeah, if someone has the money to do it, right? It's gonna be it's costly to get to the kind of places that I would imagine you'd have an out you know an outside chance of actually finding something like that.
Hmm.
Um, so if someone has the money to do it, go for it. Likely to fail. We kind of felt the same way for a lot of our recent trip. Felt way more likely to fail than to succeed.
They would look at like what you did, and they would probably use that as a beacon of hope, as like, well, they managed to find this relatively decent sized bird. So what's stopping people from finding something else?
The difference would be that this this bird has become a high profile bird
Hmm.
because it's been lost for so long. But because it was until 2014, it was lumped in with the mainland species, so it hasn't been this high profile lost species for that long. It's been 8 years. That's quite different, I think, from the thylacine. I think the thylacine is on a lot of people's radars.
Yeah.
Now everyone knows about the black naped pheasant pigeon, but until recently, hardly anyone knew about it. But the thylacine is, there's a lot of interest in trying to find that animal. There's been a lot of interest for a long time, and
Yeah.
so I think there's more writing on the wall that's probably not around.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say, again, not knowing that much about the thylacine, if it's going to be anywhere at this point, to me, it's in New Guinea and not Australia, just based on the fact that Australia is pretty well combed over by scientists.
Yeah.
New Guinea is both, there are a lot more remote, rugged areas that like local people aren't going to, but certainly scientists aren't going to, and so that's where it seems like there could be an outside chance. It seems absolutely impossible to me that it could be in Australia, based on the little bit that I know. The fact that so many people have been looking for so long and there's
Yeah.
only so much terrain to cover.
I think I agree personally, but if I had to push you either way, and you had to give me a definitive answer, is the thylacine still alive?
That's an easy no for me. Maybe a sliver of hope based on a little bit that I know, but if I have to pick one, I'm definitely putting my weight behind no, because it's both. It seems a lot more likely that it's no, and also that if it's still around and people haven't seen it, people haven't documented it, then the deck is stacked against you to document it and prove that it's still around. So definitely no.
I appreciate you chatting to me about it. I know it's not your field, but it's very interesting to hear your point of view from it as well, like being from spending a lot of time in New Guinea. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And we'll call it a day there. But everyone who's watching, go over, to Jordan's YouTube channel, The Wild Birds of New Guinea. Check that out. You're going to get loads of cool videos very, very soon about his rediscovery of the Black Naped Pheasant Pigeon, also known as the Awo.